All right. Hello, everybody. Very warm welcome to all of you. Very good evening to, I believe all of you. It's evening only. Yeah, it's good evening to all. My name is Lakshan. I am a PCC credential coach, and I also happen to be the co-founder of Guiding Light Coaching. Some of you are already familiar with the work that we do at Guiding Light. For those of you who are not familiar, we happen to be an ICF accredited coach education provider. We do, level one programs for people aspiring to become ACC credential coaches, level two for PCC. We are the foremost specialist in the country when it comes to the portfolio path for MCC. There's a bunch of other programs we offer. We can, if you're interested, we'll share our details with you later. But there's one more program that we offer, which is actually relevant to the conversation we're going to be having today. Okay. We also happen to be running our own team coach training program, because of which a lot of people over the past few months have been reaching out asking, should I join your program? Can you tell me more about team coaching and all these different things? In fact, some of my mentees have been asking me, when can I join the team coach training program and this and that and all. I'm like, boss, you first submit your recording for evaluation, then we'll talk about your team coaching and all. So that is how things are. Excitement, a lot of excitement. I believe people are getting plenty of emails and promotional material from a lot of institutes talking about this whole team coaching thing. But we felt it's important for us to be very educated, very well educated on this matter before we jump into it and get into something that we probably don't know if it's the right thing for us or not, which is what today's entire discussion is about. And for that, we have the foremost specialist in, can I say the world? I don't think Rachel will agree with me on the world thing, but I will tell you why there's a debate to be made. Okay, I'm just going to quickly introduce Rachel, and we can take a call together if it's fair to say the foremost expert in the world or one of. Uh, I'm just going to read out a description. We can take a call after that. Okay. So here's who Rachel is. Brace yourself. Okay. uh, oops. Sorry. Rachel is a leadership and team coach, partnering with high achievers, senior leaders, and executive teams to strengthen performance, clarity, and sustainable impact. Bringing a systems grounded approach to coaching, Rachel focuses on helping leaders navigate complexity, align teams around purpose, and translate strategy into coordinated action. Over the past decade, she has coached senior leaders and high performing teams across industries, supporting them to manage pressure, improve decision making, and build cultures of ownership and accountability. Her work integrates systems thinking, team dynamics, and high performance psychology to address the deeper patterns shaping leadership and team effectiveness. Okay. Here is where the debate will start. Okay. Rachel is a Master Certified Coach, MCC, holds advanced credentials including EIA Senior Practitioner, that is from EMCC, accredited Certified Team Coach, ACTC, that's from ICF, ITCA practitioner, an NLP neuro practitioner. She is also certified in positive psychology, positive intelligence, and organizational network analysis. She's a past president of the ICF Bangalore chapter. She's the global lead for the ICF team and group coaching community of practice and a member of the EMCC Team Coaching Center for Excellence. I made my point. You guys can decide now. She's actively engaged in advancing the field of leadership and team coaching through program design, research, and thought leadership focused on purpose anchored and future ready leadership. That is who we have gracing us today with her presence. Rachel, over to you.
Thank you for that very grand introduction. Yeah, I like
Rachel,
myself more now.
Rachel, before you begin, I want to tell our audience that your repertoire of this thing does not end there. Rachel is coming up with her own model in team coaching. She's put together her own framework. She's published a white paper. So yeah, so after Peter Hawkins and the league, we have Rachel Gojar with us.
Book
With
is
her
also
PAT
incoming.
with her PAT model.
Yeah, book is also incoming, just to let you guys know. And then once the book is out and the model is out, then no debate and all is there. Rachel, all your humility is going to be useless then. Okay, over to you.
Okay, thank you so much, Lakshan. All right, so welcome everybody. Thank you for joining us today, and I'm so glad that you've made time for this. And as Lakshan shared, I'm the faculty for the team coaching program that we'll run at Guiding Light. But what I have seen is, and especially program, and um you know and most of the people are asking us things like, how much time will it take, what will be the schedule, and how much time will I need to invest, how much money will I need to invest. But I think all of those questions are important, but before that, I think there's a more important question that I think a lot of coaches are not asking, and that is team coaching the right thing for them? Because the sense I get is that a lot of the coaches are assuming that team coaching is a natural progression from one-on-one coaching, right? But what I feel is that it's not, right? So your natural progression in one-on-one coaching is ACC, PCC, MCC, right? Where you kind of have a linear progression of your skill and the deepening of your skill, right? Team coaching is a slightly different, ball game, if I, for want of a better word. It's there are similarities, yes, to one-on-one coaching, but I also feel it's not always uh, for everybody, right? There are some people who are brilliant fits for team coaching, and there are some for whom it may not be. And this is not a measure of, are you a good coach, are you a smart coach, are you an accomplished coach? It is just there are a lot of things that we could be doing, and as coaches, I think we are constantly investing in our skills and our development, and we are all learners, most of us. But I think before you think of getting into team coaching, it is important for you to take a step back and really understand what this means to expand in this field of team coaching. Because understand this, when you're investing in team coaching and when you're joining a training, it is not just the investment of your time and money. You're doing it with the intention of expanding your business in that direction. So it's not, so you need to be very clear on, do I want my business to go in that direction or not? And also clear in terms of what does it mean to expand in that direction, right? So that's what we are trying to talk about today. So this session is not about convincing you to be a team coach, right? It's to help you make a very conscious and informed choice on if this is the right path for you. And for some of you, it might also be answering the question, is this the right path at this point? Right. And here, probably I'll share my own story. So I started coaching in 2010, got my ACC in 2012, got my PCC in 2015, right? And 2015 is when I picked up Peter Hawkins' book, Leadership Team Coaching. I read the book. It's a fairly not an easy book to get through, but I, uh, worked through it. And at the end of it, I had this thing in my mind that I'm not ready for this kind of work. Yeah. 2019 is when I encountered team coaching again, and that is when Peter Hawkins and David Clutterbuck had launched a training program. So these are two very big authorities in the field of team coaching, but this was the first time they were doing a combined program. They run their separate programs and they have separate team coaching models and all of that. So I was lucky enough to join the combined program because I got the benefit of both. But what had shifted for me from 2015 to 2019 was, of course, one, I had huge experience by that time in terms of coaching senior leaders, working in organizations, understanding how systems work. So at that point, I felt I'm ready. So I had also built that, the capacity and the skill that I needed to jump into it, right? And at that point, I kind of assumed that, if you have enough experience as a one-on-one coach, then you're ready for team coaching, right? That was my assumption because that was my journey. But when I started when I started training other team coaches, I had some different experiences, right? So, for example, there was one participant who had not even finished. They were in the path to ACC, right? They'd done the ACC training. They were building their coaching hours. And this person joined my batch. And somewhere in the middle of the batch, he comes to me and says, there's one thing I've realized about myself. I am better suited for team coaching than one-on-one coaching, right? So obviously the person doesn't have as much one-on-one coaching experience, but they are thriving in team coaching, right? On the other side, I've also had people who've worked a lot with teams in facilitation, and they felt that they did the team coach training and then felt that maybe this I need more time to kind of get comfortable with this, right? Now, so today our conversation is going to be largely focused on what is it that it takes to be a team coach and run a team coaching business, right? But of course, before I talk about all of that, I will talk about a few other things. And so today we are going to spend our time. You guys can see my screen? Yeah. Are you seeing
Yeah.
what we will talk
Yes,
about?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes,
Yeah.
Rachel.
Okay. Right. So this is what we will be focusing on today. We are going to talk about what is team coaching, because before you understand if it's right for you, you need to understand what it is. We will talk about why and where we need to, where you'll see the use of team coaching, and you will also get to know how it's different from other modalities. When I'm talking about other modalities, it could be team training, team building. A lot of organizations will confuse anything you say about teams as team building. So you need to be very clear on what you're talking about. There's, of course, team facilitation, there's team mentoring, there's consulting, all of that. So how is team coaching different, and why is it a more complex and more impactful modality? And what you also need to understand is how is it different from one-on-one and group coaching? Because I'm assuming everybody in the room today is a one-on-one coach, right? Some of you may have also experimented with group coaching, yeah. But team coaching is a completely different ball game, right? So I was group coaching very quickly. 2015-16 I started group coaching because it's very similar to one-on-one coaching. Team coaching is very, very different, right? So we will talk about how it's different. And once you understand what team coaching is, we will then move on to the conversation of what will this demand from you, right? So what is the work that a team coach really does? What is the skill set you need, and what is the mindset you need? Because some skills are similar from one-on-one coaching. There are some similarities, and yet there are some skills and mindsets that you need to take into the room that are completely different, right? And then we will also go through a checklist of things that you might want to ask yourself before you step into considering team coaching as your next developmental step, right? And this checklist will also kind of give you an idea that if you choose to get into team coaching at some point, what is it that you need to get ready with? Yeah. All right. So now before we talk about team coaching, of course, we need to talk about what is a team, right? So share with me in chat, or if you want to come off mute, that's fine too. What, according to you, is a team? Shared goal. Doing a different goal, but towards common goals. Okay. Individuals united by a shared goal. Yeah. So we will working towards a common goal. Okay. Of diverse individuals working towards a common goal. All right. So here's a question I want to ask. Is there a difference between the terms shared goal and common goal?
Uh, at individual and group level, it can be different.
Sorry, who's speaking? Let me
Sorry,
stop.
Shivani here. I'm sorry, I'm not
Ah.
on camera. So you can't see.
Yes. Sorry, Shivani, could you repeat that, please?
So at individual and group level, it can be different. While I am part of the common shared goal, common goal, but my individual contribution to that larger goal could be different. But at the end, I'm still contributing to the larger goal.
Okay. So thanks. Thank you for sharing that. Now, here's the thing that when it comes to team coaching, there are a few things that we want to keep in mind, right? The term we generally use is shared. Shared means we are all working towards the same thing, right? So we have a shared vision. Our shared vision is to set up this company. Our shared vision, if you are, let's say, a football team, is to win the match or win the tournament, right? And to accomplish that shared vision, we also have what are called shared goals, now, which are different from common goals. And I'll talk a little bit about how shared goals and common goals are different, right? So shared goals means we are also working on the same goal, right? And then we have some level of interdependence, right? So what I do affects you, what you do affects me, right? And we have shared responsibilities and accountability. Yeah. So this, from a team coaching concept, is what we will call a team. So there is a shared goal, shared vision, and there's a collective effort that is required. Now, as opposed to shared goals, there are also common goals, right? And when there's a bunch of individuals having a common goal, what we call that is a group. Okay. Now, this is another thing that you need to be aware of, because when you go into organizations, most of the time, team and group are terms that are interchangeably used. But from a concept of coaching, team and group are two separate terms, right? Now, what is different? Team, like I said, is a collection of individuals that's working towards a shared purpose and shared goal, right? Now, a group is a collection of individuals that are working towards a common purpose and individual goals. Now, let me give you an example. Let's say we are all part of an MBA class, right? So our common goal is to get our MBA, right? So we will be going to the same classes, doing assignments, doing all of that. So our common purpose means we all have the same purpose, is to get the MBA, but whether I get it or you get it does not impact each other, right? So there will be some people who will clear with honors, some people will barely scrape through, maybe some people will not. So one person's performance does not affect another person's performance, right? So a group is where you might be working together, but you don't impact. So there's no interdependence on each other's outcomes and impact on each other's outcomes. Yeah. Now, again, in a team, goal will require collaboration and coordination. So we have to work together. There is some level of interdependence. Versus in a group, you may decide to have a study group together and all of that, but it's not mandatory. Right? So you could do it because it interests you, but it's not really required. But team cannot function without the interdependence. And lastly, in teams, responsibility and accountability are shared. In groups, they're not. They could be, could not be also, right? So you may still decide to kind of share stuff and say, okay, we will do this for the group, right? But a team cannot function without the interdependence, without the shared goals, versus a group can. Yeah. All right. So now here's what I want to do. I want to quickly do a quiz. Okay. Again, share with me in chat. Is this a team or a group? Okay. So we see a few teams, we see a couple of groups. Okay. All the participants of this session, are you a team or a group? Yeah, because what each of you learn and take away doesn't really impact the other, right? Yeah, people traveling on the same bus route. Yeah. So people traveling on the same bus route would be a group because, one person may get off at stop 1, the other at stop 10. Doesn't really impact the other, right? And yeah, this is a good one. People reporting to same manager. Is that a team or a group? Could be either. Yeah. Yeah. So could be either. Not necessarily a team. Absolutely right. So this is again something that you might encounter when you go into an organization. They'll say, oh, this team reporting to this manager. But just because you're a bunch of people reporting to the same manager does not make you a team, right? I see this a lot in sales teams, right? So there'll be a sales director, 5 sales managers reporting into that person, and they'll say, oh, the sales team. But actually, they're all competing against each other, right? So they have targets versus each other, right? So if there's competition among them, that's not a team, that's a group. Okay, this one. What about a family? Family is a team. I hope they are a team. I like that, Shashi. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about what is what. Okay, so music band, music orchestra, any of those is definitely a team. Why? Because if one person plays badly, it throws off the entire sound, right? So they have to play in coordination with another. In all participants in this room are a group, unless you consider maybe Lakshmi, Madhu, Nitya, because we've kind of worked together. So we may be a team, but if all the participants who've joined for the session are a group. People traveling in the same bus route on the same journey are typically a group. People reporting to the same manager may or may not be, and family in some aspects, right? Now, some of you, anybody here works in family systems and works with families?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay, said
I
yeah.
do.
Okay, so know this, that if you are working with a family, from a team coaching point of view, that's not the, so team coaching primarily deals with work related stuff. All right. So there is a separate certification if you're looking at coaching families, and that's called ORSC, ORSC. It's called Organizational Relationship and something, something. Don't ask me the full form, right? But ORSC. So look that up for yourself, right?
But
The
family
difference between,
business
no,
could
family
be,
business can be team coaching.
yeah.
Right. So I'm going to take, I don't know if you guys are familiar with this, but Lakshan and Shri are business partners for Guiding Light. So they can be coached when it comes to the business aspects of Guiding Light. So if you're working with family businesses, that gets covered in team coaching. What cannot get covered is family relationships. Right? Like one of my clients, they are still off and on my clients, is a set of 3 brothers who are co-founders. Right? So we do a lot of team coaching with them, but what I will not coach them on is their relationship among each other. Right? I will coach them on their relationship in the work aspect. Right? Not that in childhood you threw away my car and I don't like you for that. Not my issue to solve, right? So when you're working with families from a team coaching aspect, be very mindful of what the boundaries are, right? Because families also come with a lot of emotional and psychological aspects to it. So be very clear on your boundaries. Yeah. Okay. So now if this is a team, now we understand what a team is. We also understand what a group is. But would their personal relationship impact their work relationship too? Yes, they do, which is why what you will work with in team coaching would be how does this impact the work? And also, one of the pieces that you might end up working with is who are you being in this room when you're working on your business together while you are family members? Who are you being in this room? Is the brother showing up in the room? Or is the team member showing up in the room? So the who, coaching the who becomes one of the big aspects of team coaching then. Yeah. All right. So now if this is a team, something else there, Chinchat? Got it. Okay. Right. So now let's talk about then what is team coaching, right? So we've got into what is team. Now let's look at what is team coaching. Now ICF definition is that it's a partnership in co-creating and a co-creative reflective process with the team and its stakeholders. Now notice how this is different from individual coaching, right? So in individual coaching, it's a partnership with one individual. In team coaching, it's a partnership with the team and its stakeholders, right? And it's designed to maximize collective potential, not individual potential, and achieve shared goals, not individual goals. So we are going to be focusing in team coaching primarily on shared goals of the team and enhancing the collective potential. And I'll speak a little bit more about this. Right. So the question, however, some of you might ask also is why do we need team coaching to start with, right? Let's say you have 5 members in a team. Why not just coach them individually and let them go, right? Why do we need to even coach teams together, right? Now, the thing that becomes important for us to understand here is that team coaching is a lot about working with systems that individuals exist in. Now, I'll give you an example. Let's say you are coaching somebody who is working on work-life balance. And one of the things they come up with is that I want to be able to, my work-life balance will happen if I'm able to pack up my bag at 6 o'clock every evening and go home, right? So, and they take a decision that from the next week onwards, I'm going to go home on time. I'm not going to be late in office so that I have more personal time and, I feel like I'm not burnt out and life is good, right? So you have that, they come up with all the agreements and accountability and I will do this, I will do that. All that actions is decided in the coaching session. Now, Monday comes, they go into office, 5:30, 6 o'clock, they pack up their bag and they get up and they realize everybody else in the team is still in office. And their manager turns and says, oh, you're going home so early, right? Chances are the person's going to say, make some excuse, but the next day, maybe they might even go home that day, but the next day, they're going to feel guilty, right? Now, what this is nothing but what is called the systemic impact, right? And that is a huge part of how we show up and the goals that we are able to meet, right? Now, none of us exist in the world as individuals. We exist as, and if you're looking at specifically organizations, we exist as part of a team, which is influenced by stakeholders, which is also influenced by wider ecosystem, right? And while one part of it is the work, we are part of many, many systems, right? Your family is a system, right? Your society is a system. You might be part of a club that might be a system. You might be part of an alumni college group that might be a system, right? So we are all influenced by these systems and impacted by these systems. And At the same time, we are also impacting all of these systems, right? So whenever we set out to do something, the impact of the system plays a big role in how successful we will be, right? And in team coaching, you are coaching that system, right? So if I give you that same example of the person who wants work-life balance, now imagine instead of that, you sit with a team and the team's goal is work-life balance, right? Then if you're working at a systemic level, you are more likely to get an impact, right? Versus one individual fighting against the system. Yeah. Now, I'll also give you an example of very early, but this is before I started team coaching. I was coaching 3 members of the executive team of one organization. All 3 used to report into the CEO. And of course, the CEO thought that he did not need coaching, like most CEOs, and he thought that his team needed coaching, right? So I was coaching head of engineering, head of sales, head of service, right? And the thing was, we want our, I want the brief given to me by the CEOs, I want these guys to do better because then, we want our business to like really flourish. And when I would sit with sales, they would say, oh, these service guys, they just can't deliver. And there are so many requirements from the customer. These engineering guys are not able to put that into the product. The engineering guys would say, I have limited resources. I have this plan of developing the product, and this sales guys come up with new requirements. I can't just shove the plans out of the window and inculcate that. And the service guys would say, these sales guys go and promise all kinds of things to the customer and sell it. And when that piece doesn't work, it comes back as escalation for us. And we end up cleaning the mess, right? And at that point, because I wasn't a team coach, I was coaching them individually in how to have those conversations with their team members and all of that. But what I realized after I became a team coach was actually they all needed to sit together in a room and have that conversation along with the CEO, right? And just FYI, in team coaching, the team leader is part of the team, right? We consider the team leader part of the team. So you don't have separate conversations with the team leader, right? So if you want to have huge systemic impact, that's where team coaching comes in, because there are some things that you cannot solve at individual level. And if you want to have a really sustainable change, then team coaching is your answer. Yeah. Now, the other piece of it is also this, right? So some of you might be familiar with this. Aristotle said that the whole is greater than the sum of the parts. But unfortunately, in a lot of teams, the whole is not always greater than the sum of the parts, right? How many of you have seen teams where 2 really smart, experienced, intelligent individuals have ego issues and they can't work with each other? Anybody seen that? Yeah?
Yeah, very often.
Very often, yeah. Thank you for saying that. Right? And so in a team, 1 + 1 + 1 can actually minus themselves out. So people could be very capable. And I always say this, a team of high performers does not mean a high performing team, because you might be canceling each other out, right? So a team of 6 individuals could total up to 2, could total up to 6, could also total up to 24, right? And this is the difference between one-on-one coaching and team coaching. In one-on-one coaching, you're coaching that individual. In team coaching, we are working with the stuff in between. Okay, so you're not focusing on the individual, you're focusing on what is it that we want to achieve together and what needs to happen for that to happen, right? And that could be, we need to be different with each other. Some of us may need to take a step back at certain times. Some of us may need to let go of control at certain times. And we also talk about how does that feel for us, right? So we have a lot of those conversations that teams would never have if we left them to themselves, right? Because the fact is that most teams don't have the vocabulary to have these kind of difficult conversations or even to sit in the discomfort of these conversations, right? So team coaching is what allows you to create bigger and sustainable change by working at the system level. So we are trying to shift the system, not the individual, right? So in the process, some individual things will change. For example, you might have an team member who always shows up late to the meeting or sends in their work late, which causes the rest of the team to get delayed, right? And often teams will sit and wait that the team leader needs to fix this problem, right? But what if we could have that conversation with that person of, because I've seen this with so many teams that a lot of times that person's not even aware of the impact they're causing, but it's annoying the hell out of everybody else, right? So we allow the team and support the team to have a lot of these uncomfortable conversations. So let me just, yeah. Okay, so what does team coaching really involve from the coach's end? You will work with dynamics and patterns that are unique to the team. You will partner with a variety of stakeholders. So again, Contracting in team coaching is multi-level. You don't just contract with, like in one-on-one coaching, you will have an organizational level legal contract, where we talk about payments and stuff like that. You might have, and then you have a contract with the coachee in terms of what do you want to achieve, and that may get signed off by maybe their manager. But in this, you have your legal contract, you have your contract with the team leader, you have a contract with the team, then there is a contract between the leader and the team, there is a contract between the team and the coach, and then there is also sometimes a sponsor level contract. So there are multiple levels of contracting, and there are also multiple types of contracting. So you might have a psychological contract, you might have an expectation contract, ways of working contract. So there are multiple levels of contracting in this. So you support the team to develop effective communication, collaboration, and accountability, right? So this is where we try and make the team self-sufficient in its accountability. You don't need to wait for a team leader to fix things. You partner with the team to develop a sense of common identity and purpose, right? Often you will see in teams that people get siloed, my unit, my business, my department, but everything exists in the service of the bigger goal, right? So getting the team to identify with that bigger goal. You also help them work through conflicts. And a lot of times those are very passive aggressive conflicts. Nobody's speaking about it, but everybody's annoyed with it, right? So you kind of surface those out. And you're promoting the team's performance as well as long-term sustainability. Now, one thing that you need to be very, very familiar with is team coaching is about higher impact, higher sustainability of the change, and it pays really well. So for those of you when that's a factor, know that one of the things that I realized with team coaching was that when I did my one-on-one training in the two levels, right? I did a ACC training, then a PCC training, and the certification and all of that, right? It took me a while to recover that money, right? In team coaching, the money I put in, I recovered 6 times of it in my first assignment, right? So it pays really well, right? Having said that, from a coach, it will also you need to develop the ability to handle more complexity. You will need way higher coaching skills, and you need a lot of emotional capacity because you're handling multiple egos, political environment, you're handling a lot of even in a team coaching room, like when you're holding space for one person in one-on-one coaching, imagine now holding it for 5 or 6 people, even if it's a small team of just 5 or 6 people, right? So there's a lot of energy that you're holding, right? But what this does for you is also it makes you so much, it expands you in terms of your ability. It expands you in terms of who you are as an individual. It helps you shoot your confidence through the roof, right? And you kind of also get so much more sorted as an individual, right? So the way I see it is team coaching is a high, risk, high reward game, right? So it requires you to have a certain amount of courage, right? To put yourself out there. But the reward is not just, while the monetary reward is great, I think the developmental reward is all the way up there. And of course, the impact that you create is again, at a different level, right? So if that's what excites you, it's the right place for you to be. A quick run through of how is this different, and I've added a column for group coaching also for those of you who are looking at group coaching, might be interested in group coaching. So in one-on-one coaching, the coachee is the individual. In group coaching, also the individual, but in a group setting. But in team coaching, your client is the team, right? Your client is not the individuals in the team. It's the team. Again, goals are individual goals. You might have some common goals, but here it's always shared team goals. Right? Where does the team want to do and go, and what do they want to achieve? Complexity, definitely, it goes up from one-on-one coaching to group coaching to team coaching. Stakeholder involvement, you typically coachee and sponsor in the first two, but here you have multiple levels of stakeholder involvement. Measures of success for the first two is individual growth, but in the last one, it's team effectiveness, it's alignment, decision quality, team performance, systemic change, right? And competency-wise, in the first two, it's pretty much similar. Of course, in group coaching, you learn to hold shared space. But in team coaching, you need all of that. That's why I've put a plus here. Plus, you need systemic awareness. You need to be able to work with patterns. You need to be able to work with different dynamics. So all of that comes in. Where do you see teams? So again, this is a factor that you need to consider. Now, know this, that team coaching means that you will need to engage with organizations, right? So if your practice is primarily B2C, like you only work with individuals, right? You don't work with organizations. This will require you to shift your business model for sure, right? Because team coaching primarily happens in organizations, different sizes of organizations, no doubt, right? So you will see this, and primarily for leadership teams. Very few, I have not seen organizations invest for team coaching in like entry-level teams, right? It's always senior leadership teams, right? Boards, a lot of boards will have coaches. Non-profit teams do hire team coaches, and startups. Like I would say a lot of my team coaching work happens in startups. They are very, very open to this kind of and very welcoming to this kind of interventions, right? But when I'm saying this, that you need to be able to engage with organizations, it also means that you need to be comfortable working with leadership teams, right? And everything else that comes along with it. But like I said, high risk, high reward game. This support ODO change management program. Loshan, I'll talk about that. It's a good question. Yeah. So just a view of the different modalities, right? So we spoke about how it's different from one-on-one coaching, group coaching, team coaching. But also look at that because, and this is something that you need to know. This I've taken from ICF. It's on their website. So you can go back there to look at it again if you want to. But this piece is very important for you to know because as per most organizational, when you go and speak to organizations, most of them will either slot you as somebody who does team building, or they will think that you do team training or team facilitation. But these are very, very different modalities, right? Now, team building is always about enhanced relationship. It's about relationship building, right? Versus in team coaching, my experiences, you don't really need to get along to work well together in a team, right? If you're in a football team, I don't need to like you. I just need to know when to pass the ball to you. Yeah. So, yeah, but having said that, team building has its place. Team training is about skill development, always about skill development, right? Consulting is typically when you hire somebody else to do the work for you, right? So, and team mentoring is again, it's knowledge based, typically somebody who's more experienced. And team facilitation is always process driven work, right? And there's always this thing of, getting to somewhere, right? Now, in all the first five, the thing that you need to remember is that it's always driven by the sponsor. The sponsor will come and say, okay, do a 2-day intervention of team building. By the end of it, people should get along better. In team training, they'll say, okay, we want this team to learn project management, strategic thinking, whatever. So it's very, so somebody will tell you what to do. In team coaching, you work with the team to figure out where do they want to get to. So it's a partnership, right? The second thing that you need to understand in team coaching is that it's real time. So it'll be about real time performance, right? Because let's say the team says that we want to launch this new product, or we want to set up this new business, right? So you will work real time with real goals versus all of the others kind of happen outside of regular work. Team coaching happens right in the middle of real targets, real time, right? So team coaching is integral to regular work and it happens in real time because you will be working with the teams on their critical business and performance goals. Yeah. Now, so this is the team development continuum. So all of these are there. Now, your complexity, degree of complexity, skill, and real-time intervention goes up like this. And in team coaching, because it's real time, it's on real goals, everything is very, very real. It's just there and it's in the moment. It's not, planned. Like if you're doing a facilitation, you might plan that I will do these 3 processes. Or if you're doing a team training, you will come back and say, okay, these are the 4 modules of content I will run. But in team coaching, just like one-on-one coaching, it's in the moment, it's live, it's what's happening now, right? So that's what you work with, which is why your ability to handle complexity and your discomfort, all of that is way higher because you can't plan for what will happen in the team, in the room. Just like in one-on-one coaching, you don't plan what's going to happen, no? You just work with whatever shows up. Yeah. Okay, so with that, I'm just going to pause before we move into, what the skill sets and mindsets needed, just to get a sense of where you guys are. Lochan, you had a question. Let me answer that. Does this support ODO change management project? It could be part of it. And thanks, your question is also reminding me. I did not mention this. Team coaching projects are rarely standalone coaching projects, right? So you might have projects where you might do team building, maybe a day of training, and then do team coaching, right? And also remember, you don't need to do all of it. Like I don't do team building. So if there's something required, I get somebody else to do it for me in my projects. Right. So if you have any of these other skills, your project could involve all of it. right? So unlike now, even ICF says this, right? Like your one-on-one coaching can't be mixed with training and all of that. In team coaching, you can have a project where you're combining a few different modalities. The only expectation that ICF has from a ethics point of view is that you clearly point out that I will do 1 day of training, then 5 sessions of coaching, and then I will also consult you. So your role has to be clearly defined in the project, right? But you can mix modalities here. In fact, when you apply for your ACTC, your application says if you've done, you have to kind of give write-ups of 5 of your projects. And in every project write-up, you have to say how many hours was training, how many hours was consulting, how many hours was coaching, right? So that's another big difference with team coaching. You can mix it with other modalities. Yeah. Okay. Any other questions? Yes, absolutely. It has to be co-creation of goals. How different is a T group facilitator? I'm not sure I get the question.
Rachel, I'm referring to, the T group facilitation, which NTL and ISAPs and all that, the process work that they do, right?
Yeah.
Facilitating the here and now discussions leading to finally outcomes that the team needs to achieve.
Okay, to be very honest, I'm not familiar with this process, the ISAB laboratories. I'm not familiar with it. But what I understand of, what I've seen other facilitators do, that facilitation is always a process driven. There's no content. It's always process driven. Versus
Right.
team coaching is always whatever the team wants to do today.
Right.
Like just like when your one-on-one coach shows up, you always ask them what would you like to get out of this time that we have together. Yeah. Okay. All right.
I thought I saw somebody raise their hand.
Madhu, it was me.
Yeah, yeah.
It was not a question, what basically Jay Krishna asked about the ICEPs or T groups. So just a perspective, and I'm not sure I'm 100% right. It is very similar to what Rachel was saying in the OD projects and all. It is a long journey project. And if there is something wherein team coaching will, as a modality, will help come together for that objective, then yes, it can be integrated in the entire change project. So it can be many different phases of it, and one part can be team coaching, is my understanding.
Yeah.
Got it.
And I'm guessing you're right, Shivani, because what I see with team coaching is it does fit in very well with OD projects, change management
Yes.
projects, right?
Yes.
So like, I've worked on projects where I wasn't the one driving the OD piece, but I was the one working on this. So you will see this plug in with
the
other
other way
modalities.
around. So I am seeing the other way around. Like if I do any OD project or change project, right from all the different parts that happen, sometimes it is very difficult to just tell what is to be done. And I find, I mean, though I'm not a team coach yet, and I'm not sure if it is for me, but I find coaching very helpful. Because when you move it from that perspective, they come up and they create, and it becomes like part of it rather than the power dynamics, which is going other way around.
Yeah. Yeah. In fact, what my experience has been, when you show up as in the coach mode in a team
Yeah.
role, 9 out of 10 times when you show up for the first session, people will be like, okay, like, tell us what to do, right? Which is how people also sometimes show up in their one-on-one coaching, right? But when you get into that team mode and say, okay, where do we want to go from here? And you take on that mode, I don't think, like I mentioned, teams don't have vocabulary for conflict. Teams also don't have the opportunity to have those kind of conversations, those
Yes.
spaces where they can have those conversations,
Yes.
right? So
You very rightly said earlier, they don't have the language.
yeah.
They don't have
So
the language. Even if they want to say, they don't know how to say, unless somebody is asking a very good question so that they can actually say, oh, yes, this is what I want to say.
yeah. So it's about, to a large extent, it's also about, helping teams have those conversations, but it's also in team coaching, the other step that we also do is that we get the team to a place where they at some point start self-coaching, right? So you get them used to that process of coaching in a way that at some point they will start self-coaching, and they will start asking those questions that you were asking in the beginning,
Yes.
right? So yeah.
I mean, coaching is magical and it has improved my facilitation and OD both.
Yeah, I'm sure it has. Right? In fact, also thanks for bringing that up. One change that happened for me when I became a team coach was my one-on-one coaching shifted. Right? So that also happens. So it's that's also one of the advantages that you'll have. And also when you get used to handling so much complexity and so much and you develop your emotional capacity and your capacity to stay in the not knowing, and for a team, then one-on-one seems so easy. So, yeah, it's then holding space for one person feels very, very easy. Yeah. Okay, so I will now move on to what is the role of a team coach? So what is it that you're really doing in the room?
Rachel, there's a question.
Yeah.
Lochan is asking, does it change your facilitation skills too? I think Shivani answered that, no?
Yeah, I'm guessing it will. But one of the things that I would also want you to be mindful of when you're doing an intervention, just hold yourself, to a large extent, all of this would be, something that you may want to do a little bit of reflection on. And you will also find that there are some places where you want to stay in pure facilitation mode. You don't want to mix things, right? So it's also going to kind of give you more width in your skill set. And you will need to, of course, take a call, intervention session to session, what's the right fit and what would give the team better outcomes, right? But what I definitely say with team coaching, which I found, which is very different from one-on-one coaching, is team coaching merges very well with all other modalities. One-on-one coaching doesn't always, because if you're training somebody and then you suddenly shift to asking questions, the people get a little confused. But that's not how it's with team coaching. Team coaching merges very well, and I believe it will definitely improve your other modalities for the simple reason your capacity to hold complexity changes. Yeah.
Rachel, do you want to bring in Deepa's example just to support?
Yeah, so Deepa, some of you might know Deepa Mahesh. So Deepa was part of my last batch. And so Deepa's been a facilitator as well as she was a therapist. Then she was been a facilitator for like ever, right? Very, very experienced facilitator. And one of the things that she told me that's shifted for her, right? So when she came in for when we do the training, we do like a 3-day in-person intervention, and then we'd have a few online classes. And when she came in for the in-person, so she was like, she attended the first day and she's like, ये समझ आ रहा है मुझे, but I'm not sure how this will fit into my work, right? And that was her day 1. By day 3, she was like, okay, I think I'm starting to make sense of it. And before we even finished the program, she had 4 assignments, active assignments, right? So I was like, how are you managing even 4, right? And she's like, no, I've suddenly realized this is the space where I can have this impact. And this piece of, this was my learning from her, that, this is her definition that I explained to you, that in team coaching, we're right in the middle of things, right? You're actively making change happen, versus with every other modality, somebody's told you what they need. So that somebody will say, oh, train them on strategic thinking, or they'll say that, okay, run a facilitation system so that team aligns on purpose. So, but here you are co-creating and partnering with the team and on real-time projects, right? Sometimes with training, you don't come to know for a long time how did it change things, right? And that's always a question of how do you show ROI, how do you show impact, and sometimes you're out of the system before you know that the change has occurred and how it has occurred. So sometimes it just becomes like you hope and then maybe you talk to somebody, but here you come to know right then and there what's changing. So the power of that work is amazing. Okay, so let's talk about what is a team coach's role. So when you're in the session, this is some of the things that you will be doing. You will observe and name patterns and intervene in real time. So somebody might say something and you'll notice the silence in the room or the energy shift. You will call it out. So you will say that I'm noticing that the energy has shifted in the room. What's really happening here, right? And of course, you have to say it in a way that creates safety for people to be able to voice out, right? You will hold the tension in the room. And this is, sometimes tension is good, sometimes it's not. So there's also this judgment of this team is struggling with it. Should I let them sit with it for some time, right? You will work with leadership and power dynamics, because sometimes the dynamics with the team leader gets complicated, right? You have to hold multiple perspectives. So there's a team's perspective, there's a team leader's perspective, there is the sponsor's perspective, there is the wider ecosystem or organizational perspective. So you have to be able to hold all of those in the room. You will notice things like silence has happened, or they're avoiding something, and you keep sharing stuff back, right? So it's again about building their awareness, encouraging them to voice things out. Again, remember, you coach the system, you don't coach individuals, right? So you will, like, again, I had given you this example. There's one person who's always late or gives in late. So you're not fixing that person. You're not helping them become better. You will talk about how does that impact the system, right? So you're not trying to fix the individual. You're just working on how is it affecting the team's outcomes. That's what's important, right? You hold the team responsible for its own effectiveness. Again, just like one-on-one coaching, you're not responsible for the outcome. The team is responsible for the outcome. And you measure success always systemically, not at individual level. Now, what are some skills? Now, you'll see that on the green thing, I've written core coaching skills. So your listening, your ability to ask powerful questions, your ability to hold your presence, have strong contracts, all of that stays, right? So you need to have all of that, right? At the same time, you need to be able to develop systemic thinking. So in fact, for most team coaching programs, I think this is one of the things that, because team coaching is always done with systemic thinking. So that's your basic skill for it. You have to have comfort with ambiguity. So not knowing, conflict, and the complexity, right? So sometimes you might have two people in the team who are both right from their perspective and who are in this active conflict, and your ability to be able to hold and nurture. Because in team coaching, we believe conflict is good for the team. If the team is not always agreeing, then there's something very, very wrong with them. Yeah. You need high emotional capacity, because if you are not grounded in the middle of all that chaos in the room, it will affect the team itself, because team will mirror your emotions and your state. Yeah. One of the analogies I'd like to draw for teams is a little bit, and those of you who have small babies, and I know Satyajit right now has a very tiny one. So babies don't have speech, right? They can't talk, right? But they sense, right? So if you're stressed out, try putting a baby to sleep when you're stressed out. There's no way the baby is going to stop crying, right? So babies pick up that energy, right? Same for teams. They will pick up the energy with which you walk into the room, right? You need very deep presence, intuition, and listening skills, because you're not just listening to one person, you're listening to multiple people, their energies, their emotions, their states, all of that. You need strong contracting and recontracting skills. In fact, in team coaching, you will have a lot of recontracting, because where the team starts and after a couple of sessions, where they are changes. So you constantly keep on checking in. We started with this, where are we now, right? And the ability to hold space for different people, different styles, and different energies, right? And this will also change session to session, because in some sessions, somebody will show up more agitated, somebody will show up more excited, somebody will show up more distracted. So you have to be able to work with all of that. And what is equally important is for you to have some high level of self-awareness and willingness to work on your own skills and triggers, right? Team coaching will bring up your triggers like no other. Right? So for example, what is your capacity for conflict? So let's say you are a person who generally avoids conflict, or you're not comfortable with conflict, right? Now, if you're that person, then let's say there are two people having an argument in the room. How are you going to engage with it? It might trigger off your own thing of, oh, I don't like this, right? Or it could be you might have a trigger with authority. And this was one of the conversations I was having with one of my last program participants as well. And what she was telling me was, I am very good at a lot of things, but one of the things I'm not comfortable with is authority figures. I'm scared of authority figures. Right? So then that becomes your self-developmental work, because in team coaching, you will meet a lot of authority figures at loggerheads with each other. Right? So if your trigger is somebody who's very alpha, it could be detrimental for your work. Right? So you have to be comfortable with not knowing, getting things wrong. You have to sit with discomfort and tensions. You have to be able to challenge yourself and the other person with assumptions and perspectives. You have to be able to speak truth to power. So if you're noticing something, irrespective of who the person is, be able to say it there. And it needs a lot of humility and courage. Right? Humility because you have to be okay with unknown. Courage because you have to speak your truth. Yeah. Okay, there's something in chat. Yeah. So, okay, so now what should you be considering before you take up team coaching, right? Now, this is a kind of checklist I've put together based on not just my experience, but experience of other participants, other team coaches. In fact, one of the things I realized about a month or two back was that when I did my team coach training, and that was all the way back in 2019, 2020, And by the way, that time ICF did not even have a certification, so I did it from EMCC at that time. There were 11 of us who got trained together. Today, only 4 of us are active team coaches. Right? So I went back and spoke to a few of them as to what makes them continue here, and for some of them who didn't, what stopped you, right? So I put this list together, and I hope this is useful to you. So I think the first consideration you need to be clear on is, do you like working with individuals or teams or both? Right? Now, I know some people who only work with teams. Like I told you about one of the participants who realized that one-on-one is not their happy place, team coaching is their happy place. For me individually, it has to be both. I like working with individuals and I like working with teams, right? So, which is why I kind of balance my work in terms of, like, I always say I don't do more than one team coaching project at a time, and because I like to have the rest as my group coaching and one-on-one coaching mix, right? But I know, like I told you about Deepa, she's doing 4 team coaching projects simultaneously, right? So it's a very individual preference. So check in with yourself on what feels right to you, right? What's your happy space? Does working with teams and systems excite you? And I kind of explained to you the level of impact that you can have, the level of, things you could turn around and change, and, all of that. So does that kind of impact, making that kind of impact, excite you? Where are you in your own journey as a coach, right? This is also an important thing, right? So this is a question that will answer to, is it the right time for you now? Right? So maybe working with teams excites you, but you feel that I'm not ready to take that plunge now. Or maybe it feels like, yes, this is right for me, and this is right for me now. Yeah. And how ready are you feeling about challenging your own limits as a coach? Because team coaching will stretch your limits like no other, and you will grow exponentially, both in skill, in capacity, all of that. Yeah. So are you ready for that exponential growth? How could your current and past experiences tie into the coaching teams, right? So again, advantage of team coaching is if you've other experience like facilitation, consulting, all of that can, fit in with, all of that can get used in team coaching. Versus in one-on-one coaching, it's typically one-on-one coaching, especially the ICF approaches, that you keep it to coaching, right? You don't mix it. How do you feel about creating that high impact through coaching, right? So for some people, it can be exciting. For some people, it can be intimidating. For some people, it can be exciting and intimidating, right? But if exciting does exist, then you should do it, right? If it's only intimidation that exists, then you should think through it. And how do you feel about coaching systems and complexity, right? How about coaching or learning to coach? And learning to coach is, of course, the first step to doing the work. This question, how comfortable are you in engaging with organizations? This is primarily for coaches whose work is more one-on-one, with end clients, and who've not worked with organizations, because this is where your business model will shift a little, right? Because engaging with organizations and team coaching, like I said, primarily happens in organizations, big or small, doesn't matter, startups. So working with organizations, getting empaneled is a whole process. The sales cycle is much longer. If you're working with direct clients, they'll just come to you. You'll probably have 1 or 2 conversations, and you're either working or not working, right? It's decided then and there. With organizations, you'll probably meet somebody in HR, then they'll say, okay, now do a presentation for my boss. Then they'll say, okay, now we want to get in the business leader. Then they'll say, okay, looks good. Now we want to send you to procurement for the negotiation. So sometimes the sales cycle can go on for 6 months, 1 year also, right? So how comfortable are you with that, right? Again, high risk, high reward. So having that patience does result in big money, but then you need to be comfortable doing all of that. And how long do you feel about long-term projects? Because your team coaching projects will go anywhere from 6. My shortest has been 6 months. My longest has been 24 months. Right? So how comfortable are you engaging with a project that's long-term? There are some coaches who prefer quick short-term things, which is why they don't want to do something that is so complex and so long-term and takes so much time. So it's again very, very individual preference. And how do you feel about engaging with power dynamics and authority figures? So this one I added just after I spoke to that coach who said that I don't feel comfortable with authority figures. So because that's when I realized that you could be a great team coach. You could be very comfortable with long-term projects or engaging with organizations, but maybe authority figures is a piece that's not comfortable. In which case, I will very honestly tell you, go and work with a coach, work through it. Something like this shouldn't stop you from shining your light. Yeah. Okay, so that's some of the things that I feel that you should consider. So, and that kind of brings me to the end of my presentation. So I'm going to stop sharing now. Let me just look at speaking. Could be more effective in-person settings. What has been your experience? That's a great question, Ramakrishna. So, um, before COVID, I was not a team coach at that point. I was a group coach, and I had this criteria, irrespective of which organization I work with. I would say I will not do group coaching unless it's in person, which meant I had to travel a lot, and so for every group coaching session, I would be traveling to whichever location, right? Now, with team coaching, what happened? I started team coaching just as we went into COVID. So my training started in January 2020, and 2 months later, we were in COVID. So my first team coaching assignment was on Zoom. And that's when I realized it is effective, right? The only criteria now that I do follow is either we do it fully in the room or we do fully online, right? So you can't have 3 people in the room and 4 people on Zoom. That doesn't work, right? But on Zoom works equally effective. But some of the things that you may want to do is you might want to get agreements and contract on how are we going to show up, right? Like some of the things that I insist on is everybody has to be in video, phones have to be off, you can't be checking your email, all of that. And honestly, it's in the beginning, people are skeptical about it, but because team coaching sessions are so, people get so involved and actively in the conversation that they're generally very present for it. So, but you do need to do the little bit of contracting around it right in the beginning, but Zoom works perfectly fine. Wouldn't it be difficult for the coach to observe team dynamics and call it out? It's actually not. You develop that muscle as you work. I used to think, which is why I said that earlier group coaching has to insist it has to be in person, but I have learned that it's not so hard. But your contracting has to be very solid on this piece. What are some derailing behaviors that you've seen come up in individuals within the teams? So when you say derailing, Shashi, what do you mean derailing?
Anything that is kind of detrimental to what we're trying to achieve, and somebody sulking and somebody just going silent, somebody just any kind of aggressive behavior towards another or anything like that.
Yeah, so I would call it out. And so this is a place that as a coach, you have to kind of call it out with uh, a little bit more sensitivity. And one big factor in this would be your ability to create safety in the room. So you might notice somebody saying something that doesn't land very well, and you see the other person shrink or become, upset, and we'll say that's a coachable moment. Immediately, it's a coachable moment. So you say that, okay, something happened here, uh, you know, and I'm noticing a shift in energy. How are you all feeling about what just happened? Right. And it's important also, the person who said it should not be, you don't make them the villain there. It's a coachable moment. Now, as a team, how do we want to be? Like it's okay to have disagreements. How do we want to disagree? Right.
Got it. Got it. Thank
So
you.
you get it out in the open, but trust safety, that piece is very, very important. And so there are, of course, techniques to create safety uh, right up from the time you start interacting with the team. So that's also a skill of a team coach. Yes, Shivani.
So, Rachel, the question that is coming, team coaching is more coaching the system, not the individual.
Yes.
Now, when
Yes.
teams are coming for the first time and experiencing team coachings, sometimes it might happen that their individual level of thinking beyond themselves, because that is what team goals require, might not be there. They are not yet there. Might be having what is in it for me, or might be having this is what how my struggles are, rather than seeing the bigger picture. So that is the
Yeah.
coaching moment then and there, part of the team coaching, or that is something that you context set or coach one on one or do out of that
Yeah. So,
session.
Shivani, that's a very, very good question. And so you're right, right? You meet all kinds of teams, right? You'll meet
Yeah.
very evolved teams and not so evolved teams, right?
Okay.
So based on so typically for team coaching, like when you're starting a one-on-one coaching project, you have a little bit of you might talk to the manager and kind of work on getting the goals for the individual. But in team coaching, that space, which we call the discovery process, is
Mm.
can go up to 2 to 3 months also, right? In which you're interviewing stakeholders, you're interviewing individuals separately. Now, typically by doing that, you will understand where the team is. And one of the factors you're also trying to evaluate is the team coachable and or ready for this coaching, right?
Got
So sometimes what I do is if the team is not, I feel clear on what's happening and all of that, I do a education training session to help them understand what coaching really is and how it will work, right? And I also and we don't start coaching till we have an agreement with the team that they all want to do it, right?
Yeah.
So team coachability is a big factor before you say yes to a project.
Yes. And will it be okay to say that in terms of, as you said, educational conversation, suppose if somebody is not getting that particular context or, whatever we are talking of a strategy, then maybe it is something for them to kind of go and learn and understand a little bit, or we help them otherwise to be
So
okay with, yeah.
So if it's a skill thing, then it doesn't come in the team coaching conversation. Right? Unless like you're a trainer for that thing also and you're willing to run a training session, and that's different. But if it's a skill thing, that won't be part of the team coaching work.
Mindset thing, because sometimes people are not evolved, as you said, and sometimes are not able to see the bigger picture there. They might come with the nuancical thing which are more related to their personal limiting beliefs or their own issues or whatever.
Yeah.
That might crop up in the conversation.
Yeah, it might. And now one of the things that you might sometimes recommend is one-on-one coaching for a specific individual, or maybe just the team leader, right? Now, again, my personal philosophy is if I'm coaching a team, I will not coach individuals simultaneously, because I think it gets very complex in terms of what's confidential, what's not, and all of that. So I just get another coach to do the one-on-one coaching. But I know of coaches who do both, right? So again, it's individual preference, capacity, all of that.
Thank you. Just one small question more.
Sure.
Is there any reasonable or healthy size of a team when we are doing team coaching?
Yeah, so if you go by ICF, they will say anywhere up to 12 to 15. If you go by actual team coaching theory and my own personal experience, I think anything more than 8 is too much. In fact, if you read Sapiens, you will read that, Yuval Noah Harari says that primates, and we are all evolved primates in a way, if the moment you kind of become more than 8, you break up into sub teams, right? And also the other thing that we do in coaching is that if your team is larger, for me, and when I say larger, for me, anything more than 6, I will always have a co-coach with me. So you could be 2 coaches working together in the room, because then there's too much for one person to hold.
Yes. Thank you. Thank you so much.
My pleasure. What do organizations seek in a team coach? As in, what would be the most important parameters as it's high impact and high investment? I think one is ability to convince them. One is being able to understand what their problem is. Second, being able to understand if team coaching is the right fit, and then explaining what you will do and how that will solve your problem. Right? So if you're able to have that conversation powerfully, uh, generally it works. For me, my early team coaching projects all came from existing clients, and then a lot by referral. Yeah, so it's easier to sell where trust is already established. Yeah. All right. So okay. So I think what is usually an response? So it can be anybody. Sometimes it could be, if you're coaching a CEO and team, it could be the CEO themselves who's also part of the team, right? So your sponsor and team leader could be same. Sometimes I've had a project that's come from boards. Sometimes, it could be the team itself. Like I was talking about those team of 3 brothers who were also co-founders. So they only decided. I was at one point the one-on-one coach for the eldest brother, and then they decided they needed help. So it could be any of those. Sometimes it'll be some senior leader also, like, so it depends on team to team. Oh, there are a lot of things, again, very specific to teams. It could be how can we work better together. It can be what is, like, one of the teams I worked with there was a merger between 2 teams, right? So how do we now work together and what needs to happen from here, right? So it will be very specific to what team you're working in, what stage of development, business, all of that they are in. So again, so it could be teams around, how do we work together? It could be also what should be our focus for the next 2 years. It could be anything. It depends on what's the priority for the team at that moment. Okay, I think any other questions or? So it will depend on what level you are contracting at. So contracting in team coaching is multi-level. One is, of course, your basic contract. Also, typically in most team coaching projects, you will start with 2 legal contracts. The first is for the discovery period, right? Where you're trying to just understand what the team is, what the system is, what their challenges are, where is the team going, all of that. At the end of it, you will come back and tell the team that these are my observations, and you will also check in that period whether the team is coachable and ready for coaching and all of that. And there are techniques to that, which we cover in our training, of course. But at that point, your level 1 contract ends, where you come back and say that this team needs coaching or coaching is not the right fit for them, right? So that could end to anything. Now, let's say you are going ahead with team coaching, then you will contract for sessions. And that's just the legal contract. Now, once that is done, then you have to have a contract with the sponsor in terms of what their role would be, what their presence, what is expected of them. You will have a contract with the team leader in terms of what is the expectation from them and what they should expect from you. Because team leader might have this expectation that if team member says something to you, you have to share it with me, right? But that will completely break the confidentiality of the system, right? Then there is a contract that the coach will have with the team members. Then there is a contract that the team members will have among themselves. Then there's a contract that the team members will have with the team leader, right? So, and as a coach, your job is to kind of make all of that happen. And that's your contracting. And then there is, of course, the session level contracting. What do we want to get out of our conversation today? Right? And like with one-on-one coaching, you will have many moments where you might want to recontract. So we started with this. Where are we today? And what do we want to do from here? Yeah, Padma, did that answer your question? Like contracting is a whole one module in my training. Because
Yeah. I was just curious to know, because if you're an individual, if you're a coach for the individual team leaders, like how you said, you were coaching the elder brother and then it ended up into a team coaching. I'm just curious to understand if you had to be the individual coach and the team coach at the same time, how was it? And like, how do you kind of sensitize them to say that our roles are shifting and things like that? That was on my mind as well.
yeah, so that's something that I call out right up front.
Okay.
No, so just to kind of clarify, I wasn't coaching the elder brother at the same time that I was coaching the team, right? So I coached him at one point, and then he came back and said, "I think we are having some challenges happening. Will you be able to do something for us?" And then I said, "Okay, I can team coach you, right?" But I called out very clearly in our first meeting when I met the three of them together that this is now, while I've been, this person's coach before, my role here is this. So you explicitly call out what your role is, what you will do, what you will not do, what is confidential, what is not confidential, all of that, the boundaries and the container has to be very explicitly explained, right? Very, very important. And then held, right? You can't break that, because the moment you break it, the trust goes out of the window.
Yeah.
So,
And if the elder brother comes back and says, hey, from the team coaching, I realize I would continue to do the individual coaching, then two different separate containers.
yeah, and like I said, I individually, my personal preferences, I didn't, he didn't ask about it, but if he had asked,
Okay.
I would have said no. While I'm coaching
Oh,
the team,
got
I
it.
can't coach it. Right? Because for me, then it becomes too complex, right?
Yeah.
So, right? So,
Got it, Rachel. Thank you.
and then there are too many ethical boundaries that might, kind of merge. So I'd rather not get into that
Absolutely.
mess.
Understood.
Rachel, we have a question. Shashi is asking, usually how long is one session?
So my typical sessions are 2 hours. But also sometimes, and not in all assignments, sometimes team coaches happens in the live team meeting. So it could be also like I might sit through a meeting and just have a quick couple of interventions in the meeting itself, right? So it depends on, again, assignment to assignment, project to project, and how comfortable they are with the work of coaching. But if it's just a pure team coaching session, it'll be my sessions are 2 hours. There's some coaches who go for 1.5 hours. There's some coaches who also do 3 hours. There are some coaches who also do a day-long intervention. So again, there's a lot of flexibility in creating your style of here, right? So typically like one-on-one coaching sessions are 45 minutes, 60 minutes, and you kind of, right? Here, there is a lot of flexibility and a lot of creativity that comes in, right? So that's why I also like team coaching, because for every assignment, you're thinking, okay, how do I want to do this one now?
Rachel, do you also use some kinds of frameworks, games, or activities at times?
Not activities as such, because again, coaching, you don't go in with activities, and I don't like to use tools. I like coaching to be coaching. But there are frameworks for how to work with, like in one-on-one coaching, you have like grow model or all that, right? So there are certain structures that help you stay and kind of see things more clearly. One of them is my own PAT model, which I've just finished the white paper for it. Then there's Peter Hawkins' model, there's David Clutterbuck's model. There are quite a few models out there, right? But the intention of all the models is just to help you see what you need to see in the room, because there's so much happening in the room. Yeah, so those models do exist, yes. Padma, I typically have 2 hours sessions, but it's not set in stone. You can have 1.5 hours, you can have 3 hours. You decide. That's the best part with team coaching. You have a lot of flexibility to decide. Okay, so I think we are almost done with the questions. Yeah.
We'll just give it a minute just in case somebody has anything that's emerging for them in the moment.
I will have to leave. Thank you so much, Rachel. This was very useful as always. And thanks to the entire team. Lakshan, very good to see you, Madhu. And hi to everyone. Bye for now.
See you,
Bye,
Shivani.
Shivani. Yes, we'll see you again.
Yes, definitely.
Right. Okay, I think looks like we're good to close. We will share this recording with all of you. We'll share the slides as well. And our Team Coaching Essential program starts in June 3rd to be specific. And we have an enrollment form. If you're keen, do let us know, and then we'll send that to you. You can respond after you look at the recording once again. And if you feel called to this program, do let us know by email, and we will share the enrollment form with all of you.
Thank you. Thank you, Rachel.
Yeah.
Thank you, Madhu.
Thank you, Aarti.
All right. So with that, we come to the end of this session. Thank you for spending your Wednesday evening with us. We hope to hear from you soon. We'll send you the email sooner.
Yeah. Thank you, everybody. Have a good evening.
Thank you. Thank you, Jaya. Thank you.
Uh,
I think we can stop the recording also, no?